Good morning, Sheila.
Very excited to have you on the show, kicking off our Great Books for Lousy Weather segment, which, I mean, you're in Arizona, so you're probably not having lousy weather like we are, right?
It's pretty nice, actually.
All right. They'll turn on you, Catherine. Be careful. People have had a lot of snow and cold weather here.
Oh, well, for a desert rat, it's very cold. If you live in the desert and you're not used to the cold, when winter comes, you feel freezing.
Okay, so we'll give you that then.
Okay.
But that's one of the things I love, too, about reading Beneath the 13 Moons. Is it's a sea world, so it's got to be warm, because if you're in the water, it's got to be warm. What an amazing world. I mean, talk about world building. How on earth did you come up with this concept? Did you see the world first and then create the story?
In this one, each time I create a series, I do it a little differently. In this particular book, I did create the world first. And then the characters developed from what their life would be like on that world. And that developed the characters, and then they kind of took off from there.
I'm jumping ahead a little bit on the story. Can you give people just sort of the nickel tour of what the story itself is?
It's about a world that's totally covered in water, with enormous trees growing up from the ocean floor. And in the trees, that supports all life on the world. And it's about the love of a man and a woman who actually changed the course of the world and ultimately ensure the planet's very survival. This is kind of a lost colonist series where humans go and settle planets and they adapt to the planet's environment.
Now, there is magic, though, in this book, so this is not
Absolutely.
just guns and
Yeah, I
knives.
can't seem to keep, it's kind of quasi sci-fi fantasy. I can't keep that magic out. I kind of base it on a scientific methodology as far as you eat the root and it opens new pathways in the brain and allows the chemical activity to, change matter, but basically it's fantasy.
But it's believable fantasy. I mean, it's very engrossing fantasy, the whole magic root, how they bond together. Now, is this part of a series? I know you have several series going.
Yeah, no, actually, this was the very first book I had ever written.
Oh.
Back in 2003, it was published as a hardcover. And so this is actually the re-release of the paperback cover, which is thrilling for me because that means it's much less expensive and it can get into more readers' hands. So I had actually started this as a Lost Colonist series, and I had started book 2 about a different world, basically where they lived in caves because the planet was so hot. And then I sold a new series while I was in the middle of writing that, so that I brought that to an abrupt halt and wrote the new series. And I just never got back to this original concept for, book 2.
Does it ever call to you, though? Because it's such an amazing world.
Does it, I'm sorry, say that again?
Does it ever call to you? Because it's such an amazing world.
I actually, after I had written it, I started thinking of a new story with their son and daughter in the SeaWorld because I so fell in love with it. So, yes, absolutely.
Heck yeah. Well, we're not done with this series just yet, Catherine. Well, we'll be right back with Catherine Kennedy on Great Books for Lousy Weather on 100.5 WKEE.